son nada más que solo palabras, y si no las cumples se van a desvanecer. Algún día volverás tú al lado mío y yo de testigo. Vamos 1, 2, 3, sin estrés. Muéstrame sus pasos, te cuento hasta 10 y ven. Yo sé que tú quieres moverlo sin pena, ven, sin estrés. Muéstrame sus pasos, te cuento hasta 10 y ven. Yo sé que tú quieres. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, de todos esos placeres que brinda la vida y que nos hace tan feliz. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, de todos esos placeres, como acariciarte y conocerte de raíz. Recuperé la fe cuando yo a ti te vi, mami. Bailabas como un ángel, me acuerdo de ese party. No lo hacías despacito, no eras como Daddy, eras como Bad Bunny, tu flow bastante cari, alright. Hermoso y con timidez me gusta, y con esa sencillez que asusta. Sabes bien cómo es que es, combi completa de cabeza a los pies. Sin effects, mami, yo te entono, te subo el pecho y te derrito el cono. En mis historias siempre te menciono, para esa reina necesito un trono. Sin effects, mami, yo te entono, con esos besos, chica, me emocionó. Con tu cuerpo y tu nivel, quieres otra vez. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, de todos esos placeres que brinda la vida y que nos hace tan feliz. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, de todos esos placeres, como acariciarte y conocerte de raíz. Vamos 1, 2, 3, sin estrés. Muéstrame sus pasos, te cuento hasta 10 y ven. Yo sé que tú quieres moverlo sin pena, ven, sin estrés. Muéstrame sus pasos, te cuento hasta 10 y ven. Yo sé que tú quieres. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, de todos esos placeres que brinda la vida y que nos hace tan feliz. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, de todos esos placeres, como acariciarte y conocerte de raíz. Inicio el futuro, bebé, ya tú sabes.
They got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Don't hang with a who line for nothing. I see that we different, you riding, I double. I don't do discussions on bragging about hundreds. Don't go to your places, I know that they sunken. Don't call me your brother, I barely could trust it. I talked to a shorty, she bagging the bugging. And I'ma need all of my dollars on corporate, so hand me the money, I divvy the pie. I'ma give all of my people a portion to build them a fortune. I'm flipping the ride. I can't be mixy when iffy the vibe. And 40 on 50 is really the time. Why are you all on my phone like you want me? Like you wasn't pushing the kid to the side. I don't know if you thinking I'm blind. Cross on my crosses and doubt on my eyes. Done with your efforts, I'm dealing with pressures. I know it's a lesson, that's word of the wise. Dubbing the mixes I'm mixing, I know I've been missing. I needed some personal time. All the pictures, dimensions, I don't with your digits. I mean it, I'm staying inside. Cause they got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it.
before you faded away. I got to know you, got to love you. Just keep on walking down to separate ways. I can show you, escaping your pain now. You break down, you're drained now. Your heart pounds, your lips move, your eyes shine. You lose it all. I'll just wait here as you're fading away. I got to know you, got to love you. One thing to say before you're fading away. I really love you. Escaping your pain now. You break down, you're drained now. Your heart pounds, your lips move, your eyes shine. You lose it all. Together we go down to the ocean for you to sail away. Trying not to show you my emotions. Now you sail away. Together we go down to the ocean for you to sail away. Trying not to show you my emotions. Now you sail away. Escaping your pain now. You break down, you're drained now. Your heart pounds, your lips move, your eyes shine. You lose it all. Got to know you before you faded away. I got to know you, got to love you. Together we go down to the ocean.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Smite Minor League. I will be your captain, Tom Battinger, joined here by my co-pilot, Anatoly Alexeyanok. And we're going to be flying high because today we've got some high-octane performance. Big competitors here, specifically on the European side of things, Toly. We're going to start off with Flashpoint Exordium and then move on to Simplicity taking on Horizon Union.
Coming off of the bye week, I'm curious to see how these teams have prepared for this matchup in week number 6. We're getting closer and closer towards the end, where we're building on those moments of the land. We saw how Armada was really hyped in towards beating out Rival, and those are the moments we live for.
Looking towards the sky, these guys have been really successful. Talking about all four of them, frankly. But, you know, as we start looking at Flashpoint and Exordium, these are the teams. It kind of feels like two fighters coming out and having some little bit of extra rest with that bye week. I think these teams are going to come out swinging with some hot, heavy hands. Let's take a look at the schedule. As I said, two of these teams coming out from Europe on the top and then smoothing into Simplicity, Horizon Union, case we're now called Offline, and then NA. We've got Armada and Hype Unit, two of the top teams as well, Cryptic and Exilium. So like I said, man, we are cruising today.
Really excited about that first North American matchup, considering that Hype Unit's still undefeated in the North American Minor League, but it's all about Europe to start.
Let's take a look at the scene as how everybody's looking in our standings. Flashpoint up on top. tied up there with Team Queso 3-1. Even their plus minuses are 4 apiece, and Simplicity hanging in there as well, all tied up for first. Kind of outlandish.
It's kind of that rock, paper, scissors matchup where Flashpoint got beat by Queso. Queso lost to Simplicity. Simplicity lost to Flashpoint. So it's that three-way horse race for the number 1/2 spot, because only 2 teams are going to get a chance to qualify to HRX.
Always spinning around. We saw some of the guys come out here at LAN when it came down to the summertime in our little break in between the Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Pro League. And so some of these guys have already gotten a taste of the top-level competition. But moving back to online play, we've seen a little bit of the teams kind of settled down. I think Simplicity has, whether Simplicity has kind of cooled off or the other teams have really risen to the occasion, is a different conversation. And so with that in mind, we'll jump into it. Picks and bans for game number 1 here, Flashpoint and Exordium. When we look at Flashpoint, we know they're looking in the jungle.
Absolutely. Between Johnny there controlling that early game, and it's up to Freudian on the other side to really figure out how he wants to start off the early game. Does he want to more focus on farming for himself or look for ways to stop Johnny? Because if you let Johnny get off to an early start, he's going to go like 10-0 on almost any guy that he plays.
And so what's your read on the situation? Do you attack Johnny or do you play your own game?
If I'm Freudian, I'm playing my own game, but I'm kind of asking my support over here, Alka, to maybe assist in some matters, maybe some level 1 shenanigans.
Well, Exo right now might be fishing for some of those shenanigans, leaving the Ao Kuang up so far. The Zhang Kui and the Janus will be banned out. Flashpoint on the other side taking care of one of the top-tier mages. Well, 2 of the top-tier mages. Isis and Merlin going to be banned out by the Black and White here. And then Exordium, I think everybody's looking here at the Ao Kuang. Will it be banned? The answer is no.
It might be first picked, still up in the air. Between Thor and Set, those are 2 high-priority picks now that Flash might have to consider. Do they ban one, or do they leave both open so that they can get the other?
The Set's going to be banned out here. Exordium on the clock. They could go into Scotty has been powerful, but not really picked at the high level of play. Nike's been powerful, though not really picked at the high level of play. So I'm looking definitely in Flashpoint's jungle. I'm looking at the Ao Kuang. I'm looking at some of the other choices like Bakasura. But Exordium are looking at the top of the tier list one more time. Oleron has been very, very hotly contested, both here in the minor league, the console league, less the console league, but more so the pro league.
That Sanctified Field ultimate just controls way too much space, and honestly, once you get 4 items deep on Oleron, the potential that you have to burst any squishy mage that might be out of position just goes to 0 to 100 in like less than a second.
Well, Jormungandr certainly standing tall here, and he'll be chosen next to him using Cobb. So Johnny's choice not being prioritized, and that's really no surprise. Johnny's one of these guys that strikes you as he's going to play his game regardless of the selection. A lot of times we talk about his small god pool, but his god pool is just large enough that it can get through picks and bans and still give him something that he can choose to carry on.
Whether it's the late game Kali, Bakasura, he'll also play out the Willish from time to time. Thor is still available if he wants to go for it. We've seen his Ratatasker be very nutty.
Right now, on her here, chosen next to the Oleron. A strong choice in middle. Again, one more time in the summer, this guy really made himself known on her. Hansa Dardas played in the middle lane, really kind of busted up open a lot of what people would look at as far as the meta is concerned. After that, just pure hunters in the mid lane, and on her, certainly the #1 culprit, if you ask me. Across the way, though, Fafnir selected in tandem with Jormungandr and AMC.
It leads me to believe that with the Fafnir selection, we're probably going to be looking at another magical hunter to pair up with the Coerce and extra attack speed, control some of these objectives with the Gold Furies. Soul is still available. Freya hasn't really been picked too often, so I don't expect that to be the case. If I'm Exordium, I'm looking at the Fafnir pick, and I'm leaning towards the Soul ban.
Well, right now they're certainly looking at the Ao Kuang, which is something that we were talking about earlier, and Johnny will not have the Dragon King available to him. And there's the Soul Band that Tully was talking about. So one hand on the other, one eye looking into the jungle, and one eye looking at the communication of Fafnir and AMC. So Flashpoint now on the clock, looking for...
You could still go double hunter here, honestly. Habwa is still good. I think that could be actually for Johnny in the jungle role if I'm expecting that to be the case. Musenkop is probably going to go mid, and it's going to be another physical hunter to pair up with this Fafnir because AMC is more of an ability-based hunter. Even though he could do both, I think you're leaning more towards the physical power to scale off of the abilities, and then late game, get like something like a Rom potentially or Jing Wei to control the objectives.
Exordium going to round out their draft here. We've got the Oleron and the Anhar So 2 basic attackers will work out with the Khepri on the back line. And then Cucullin Cabrakan will be their front line. Cabrakan likely to be in the jungle. So rather tanky here for Exordium. How they bring 3 sort of frontline characters to the table. And the answer from Flashpoint will be Daji.
Ooh, interesting little twist. I really thought we were going to see a magical jungler there, but this still makes a lot of sense. We're probably going to be seeing... Honestly, I still think we're going to see AMC in the mid lane to control that lane and look for some red buff invades, and then maybe Habwa in the long lane.
Certainly could be. Habwa is powerful. Is he powerful enough? We'll take a look right now. Let's look at the casters.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Anatoly. It's Finch and Taco here for the first game of the SML. Exordium up against Flashpoint. Taco, I really want your thoughts on these drafts, because I do kind of think Exordium might have gotten a slight edge with their draft. Khepri feels so strong right now. Oler in late game feels strong as well, though they are going into a Fafnir and a Jormungandr.
For me, it really just depends on how this Khepri actually pans out, Finch, because Kispanify has more than enough burst damage, I think, to kind of deal with the likes of Angry or even the Cabrakan and some of these other beefier frontlining members from Exordium. But if Alka's on top of those Scare's blessings, it's going to be tough for Flashpoint to break through with this single target burst.
Poison rotated over to try and make sure this blue buff went down successfully, and he does. Fusify just going to harass the Cabrakan for a little while. It is indeed that Habwa, though, that you just mentioned, all the way over in the long lane with Ferricrik, taking the Amuzen Cobb to the middle lane where he feels so comfortable nowadays. Johnny will be on the Daji in the jungle, who can expect to start having an impact on this maybe a little bit later than a lot of other junglers nowadays, more like 7 or 8 as opposed to some who come right online at that 5, but we'll see what it is that his path is. Johnny so often determines how Flashpoint goes.
I think the main reason, though, why I'm a big fan of Ferricrik taking that Amuzen Cobb into the mid lane is because it's going to help out with that Daji in the clear. If there's one thing that mid lane AMC has always been pretty good at, Finch, no matter what amount of nerds we bring him.
Oh, yeah.
That bees and the honey just does something to that lane clear, and Angry already having a little bit of a tougher time, but still keeping up for the most part, and it's all been fairly standard as far as starts are concerned, and these teams just prioritizing their buffs.
Yeah, that Mage's Blessing, I think, just synergizes so well with Amuzen Cobb and the passive, and adds so much extra damage for him. So that's a big part of why is Ferricrik and Fusify moving aggressively into Exordium. But Frozen, despite being on the tanky Cabrakan, just wants to walk by all of it. He gives them way more credit there than I think they deserved, and that forces the shell out from Alka. Exordium on the back foot already.
That shell, though, coming in pretty clutch here for Exordium, but you're right, Finch. The fact that Exordium is already this pressured, and it's not even like they were pushed up the lane or anything like that. They were sitting underneath their own T1 tower, and still Firecrack with that swarm and the bees able to force out the shell this early on.
That's right, and part of it is just that Fusify, I think, had a bit of an aura there walking forward. Exordium were giving Flashpoint a lot of credit for their follow-up potential in that fight, which is a bit odd, I thought, considering they had the On-Her, the Cabrakan, who can feel very potent at this timing, as Johnny has his beats forced out, and he's slammed down. Exordium finds first blood.
Pretty sneaky pick off there from Frozen. Don't think that Johnny was expecting that Cabrakan to blink through, but that's the type of damage that we mention all the time with Cabrakan that can be a little bit unexpected here, because you traditionally want to view him as a more tanky member, but Cab can certainly put forth a lot of DPS.
Fusify looking for the harass here around the red buff, but there's plenty of reinforcements from Exordium on the way, and so Fusify drops it. But I mean, that exact engagement is kind of why I was so surprised that Exordium just kind of walked by Fusify in that first fight that happened by that choke point between the red buff and the middle lane, is that they do have this Cabrakan and this On-Her with a bunch of burst damage early on, and it kind of would have, you would have thought it would have been Flash when you were a bit worried.
Might have just been on cooldowns at the time.
Sure.
Keep in mind that when you're hovering these mid lane sections, not always that easy to confirm both the mid harpies, and well, Kha'Zix not going to be in any real concern just yet. Sibi, though, going to eat a couple of tower shots, get himself poked out fairly low here, but no gank opportunities really for Frozen so long as that blink is still on cooldown.
I like the idea, though, from Kha'Zix. Use the ultimate, force the Jormungandr into that dazed passive when he's going to be taking some tower shots, and see if maybe you can find some turnaround potential there. But Sibi, full HP, able to just meander slowly his way out from the tower range. But so far, this pace, I think, has gone about how you'd expect. Exordium with first blood from the Cabrakan almost feels like a necessity at times to make this pick really, really work. He can be such a nuisance in these early levels.
But on that same note, I'm kind of surprised that Exordium hasn't tried to be just a little bit more aggressive, at least with that long lane. Because keep in mind, Caspanify on the Habois, prior to hitting that level 5 and getting the Crushing Wave online, I think that was the best opportunity for Exordium to look to try and suppress this Habois. As it currently stands, Itori's had a pretty tough time, I think, at just trying to clear the wave. Sure, Olorun's got some distance, but Spanify just hitting him with consistent water spouts, water hands, just making it real tough to live.
Well, time to gank Sibi since the ultimate is down, and this should be a pretty clean kill for Kha'Zix. Exordium now have 2 on the board, and that's just great recognition. He used the ultimate diving, wouldn't have it for the escape. Easy kill.
Some good picks, and it's a little bit of that early game aggression that I was just asking for, which I love to see it, but taking place over there in solo, and I'm not too certain that Sibi's going to be nearly as concerned as Caspanify for some early deaths.
Flashpoint considering being around for the red buff invade, but can't make it there in time. That's all Exordium every day. Alka has been caught a bit on his rotation towards mid, but it's mostly just Fusify to worry about. Johnny wants Itori, so Itori drops the Sanctified Field, and that's nice force out from Flashpoint and the purple buff stolen.
Alka rotating in as well, though, just in case any further aggression was intended from Flashpoint, but Flashpoint will disperse after taking the experience off of that purple camp, and it's really just the timer that Flashpoint is after here, because now they can look to continuously harass Tori near that purple buff, or even in the jungle whenever the spawn's about to come through. I would definitely expect to see Caspanify getting more aggressive in lane as well, just to possibly force Tori back and make it even more difficult for Exordium to try and prevent Flashpoint from that steal.
But doesn't this already kind of speak to your point there, Taka, where we would expect Exordium to be the aggressor here, but really all they've done is kind of look for picks. It's been Flashpoint that's been the team that's been aggressing into Exordium's jungle. They've been at least nearby for red buff every spawn, as now Freuzen's in trouble. In comes the Abduct, though, from the Khepri, so Johnny responds by taking to the sky. Freuzen will be getting pulled back in, but has the Scarab's Blessing there, but it's Alka who is actually in trouble. The Khepri ends up falling. Fusify hunts down Freuzen on the Cabrakan as well, and suddenly Flashpoint find a 2 for 0.
Kha'Zix might have just walked into the wrong neighborhood as well, Finch, because Flashpoint
Body
still grouped up. Kha'Zix nowhere left to go, trying to get a little bit of this knockup from the Kakolin, but it's still just not enough. Cut off from Sibi and brought down, as Kha'Zix will be the 3rd casualty point here now for Flashpoint, and Angry trying to strike back. Might be able to find it. Beads are good, and Firecreek will wind up falling. Solid impale for the cleanup on the backside there, and Exordium do manage to strike back at least a little bit.
Well, everybody but Fair Creek played that last little engagement about as well as possible. A nice hammer there from Fusify to very nearly save his AMC's life, but instead Fair Creek takes a spill. But I think Flashpoint are still A-okay with the way that exchange went overall there, Taco. I mean, only losing Fair Creek and all of that's pretty good.
Spanify also, though, could be in a little bit of trouble here, but Root off the mark from that Khepri, and Alka just retreat back to the jungle. Purple buff, though, is what I'm mostly keeping an eye on here, Finch, and this is well played by Exordium to re-establish their own buff timer now. Flashpoint gonna have a little bit of a more difficult time, I think, trying to play off of that long lane without it, and it does seem as though Sibi and Kha'Zix are a little bit more the focus here as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, there's been a lot of attention here onto the solo side, but I was valuing this Khepri a lot coming into the matchup, and you were a little more cautious, saying you wanted to see how Alka's going to be piloting it. And you did get the Scarab's Blessing off onto Freuzen, but it's just that Flashpoint were able to pretty easily wait it out. They got both of those kills, the kill on the Alka and the Freuzen, regardless.
It was just really solid patience from Flashpoint, and the immediate target refocus, I think, is what really sold that team fight for me. Johnny gonna Trickster Spirit into the wave, but won't be able to find anything for it. Faircreek, on the other hand, gonna get eaten up inside of that Sanctified Field by those mid-oracles, and, well, Flashpoint a little bit too preoccupied staring at that solo side, and now Exordium gonna pull the Gold Fury after picking Faircreek.
This is pretty huge, though, for Exordium. If they can grab this Gold Fury, it feels like this comp is really going to need it. Fusify does get away from the Abduct. Gold Fury has been unleashed, and Flashpoint have done enough in order to stop Exordium from pulling gold. I feel like they really needed that.
Angry had the right idea, just not enough time to actually execute. A little bit too slow on that pillar impale, but Kispainify from the backside now trying to just find the trade out against Itori. Will get it with the water hands and is still going. Froizen now looking for the Tremors push out. But this Hotbois just wiggling away on that Atlas of the Yellow River.
And is still sticking around despite that nose that this Cabrakan is melee range, but it's Alka's making the rotations in. The root doesn't land, the abduct is there. Fusify drops a shell to keep him alive, but it's Johnny who finds Kha'Zix. Look at this focus on the solo lane from Flashpoint. They've ganked over here now twice and be able to find good kills.
And it all starts off with Sibi having been paid a pretty early visit by Exordium. Now Flashpoint seeming to just kind of be returning the favor and trying to shut down any of that early game momentum that Exordium was trying to build from the few picks that they were able to establish. We haven't really seen a whole lot of action from Exordium aside from those initial ganks early on. Most of it has just been counter initiation, Finch, and don't get me wrong, it's definitely a good take for Exordium to still be looking for a little bit something after the fact, but how long until Flashpoint's composition is really online?
Will eventually become quite scary. Ferrocryk did take 2 deaths back-to-back, which really slows him down as Johnny looks to try and punish Froizen. He will at the very least get pulled in, and Johnny's still able to find the kill, even with Kha'Zix nearby. He had the ultimate to maybe try and buy a moment, but that's held on to. And now in comes Angry to try and find the return kill. He certainly does. Down goes the Daji. Sibi forced into the ultimate of his own right to fall back. That's just Johnny looking to try and make a play and finally getting punished.
Blue buff still already stolen away by Flashpoint, so Kha'Zix still gonna have to take a back seat on this one, since he won't be able to pick up that blue buff anytime soon. And Flashpoint, little by little, continued starting to pulling away, and the experience starts. And gold difference though, nothing to really be too concerned about for Exordium just yet, but it's really just that experience I'm gonna keep an eye on here, because Flashpoint, definitely a team that likes taking those mid-game fights.
Yes, they're going to be very difficult to deal with in the mid-game fights because almost everyone on their team is going to have 1v1 potential against you. So even if you do somehow manage to break apart the team fight, they'll all still work pretty well independently too. So Exordium gonna need to slow things down as Kispainify finds himself a crushing wave. Get away from Froizen's gank. The knockup is huge, and Johnny the better finds one more kill. Froizen goes down, and Flashpoint continue to get on the board.
The damage from this Daji already is starting to overwhelm Froizen, especially because of the 2-level disparity that has developed between these two junglers. Johnny has just had a significantly easier time at closing the gap in these lanes to actually get on top of his target a little bit sooner than this Cabrakan, who's more dependent on that blink in order to really get within range. And something else I kind of want to backtrack to in terms of Exordium's composition, Finch, is the fact that yes, they've got all these beefy frontlining members, but at the same time, you have to be a little bit concerned about how easy it's going to be for Ferrocryk to kind of disperse those bees and the honey and the slows. It's going to be really tough for Exordium to create some space here because they kind of need to stay stacked on top of each other for this composition to really work.
Yes, they're trying to rely on, it feels like, this lockdown between Froizen and Itori. And in that left-hand side, it just was not enough. Kispainify was able to do way more in that little skirmish once Cresting Wave allowed him to reposition. Just a good read to avoid that initial blink initiation from Froizen. Kispainify blinks it again, trying to catch out Itori. At the very least, forces his Aegis. Is now going to look for the retreat path. Uses the beads to fight through the slows. But this is when Itori feels really good. Finds the crits, and Kispainify gets soloed.
If the waters had connected, we'd be seeing an entirely different storyline here, Finch, but that's the danger of trying to take those 1v1 exchanges inside of that sanctified field. As soon as those purification beads go off, then you're stuck inside that time dilation.
I wonder if you also saw the difference between Bancrofts and Pythags there as the health pools got low, but this is a big battle happening in the middle lane. Sibi comes in to try and play the disrupting factor. That is also already the Scarab's Blessing that is down on the side of Exordium. Looks like much ado about nothing as everyone makes it out.
I still like the usage, though, of that Scarab's Blessing. Even though Froizen wasn't in any danger of dying immediately, it's just the cleanse factor to get that Pow-Lao chain off of the cab so you don't even have to worry about Froizen getting sucked in to begin with.
And they did not have to worry about him getting sucked in, so everyone ends up falling back. That means the most impactful thing there is that Kispainify just bit off a little bit more than he can chew on the left-hand side. I think he started that fight off with Itori with a blink. I mean, clearly this Hotbois is meant to play aggressive, and Itori was able to stand up to him.
really well-timed Aegis as well from Itori. Kind of read that the crushing wave would be following shortly after the water spout, as is tradition oftentimes with our Habwa players.
Well,
but
hello.
Flashpoint, even after losing Kaspanify over there in duo lane, now that he's respawned, they feel completely confident.
Wow.
Going for this Gold Fury, and Exordium not going to even get a chance to work their way in. Nicely played by Fusify there with the zone duty. But Exordium, they've got to try and look for something after the fact. They're just letting Flashpoint reset for free.
Flashpoint make their way back out, and Exordium can't find the punish. I mean, this could potentially be it, though. A second kill on a Kaspanify. Crushing Wave allows for the reposition, but it isn't enough damage, but very, very nearly was. Freuzen just barely gets in there and shuts that down before he ends up having to trade away his Olorin.
And I can't lie, Finch, that difference between the Pythax piece and that Bancroft's Talon definitely starting to bleed through here for Kaspanify, because that sustain just is not the same in comparison to Itori. But it is a little bit different when you do have Freuzen constantly in that duo lane, but this is what I expected from Exordium. This is what I think is necessary to kind of keep this Habwa damage at bay.
Look at this, though, from Freuzen on the Cabrakan. He goes to the delayed Gauntlet of Thieves as his third slot item here for the Cabrakan in the jungle role, and I totally get it. You know, you definitely do want some protection going to be in close, but I mean, in the jungles, he going to be getting enough stacks on this. What do you think?
Oh, I think that Angry might be dead here in a second if Johnny's able to keep locking him down. Looking for the Pala. No one said it's going to be Trickster Spirit, but a well-timed Scarab's Blessing going to be able to force Angry into that revive still. Angry not completely out of it just yet.
But Sibi's ulting in. They want this fight to continue. Johnny, low on the right-hand side, makes his way out. No, Kha'Zix hunts him down. Angry leaps over the Jormungandr ult, and Itori is able to find Farrakrik. Sibi can't make his way to the on-her, and now he's stuck between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower, desperately looking for a kill. But this fight's going to be all Exordium, 3-for-0 in the blue team's favor.
Flashpoint just tunnel vision so hard there for Angry. They wanted everything to do with that on her, and Exordium just kept playing straight on through it. And Angry also, I think, did an excellent job at creating some space, but also making sure to keep his front line close enough that they could look for that consistent peel factor. And just a really solid punish, if you ask me, Finch, by Exordium.
And another good fight that starts with a well-timed Scarab's Blessing out from Alka, which is what kind of gets the initial overcommit from Johnny underneath the Tier 1 tower and forces him up onto the Palau. We talked about how much this competition is going to need really good Scarab's Blessings if they want to win, and they just got one as they now pull the Pyromancer. Fusify's nearby Taco to try and make a save, but he's not even going to make it in time.
Didn't even elect to toss that Fafnir hammer over the wall and see if he can maybe steal the objective, but had no indicator of what that health threshold actually looked like for the Pyromancer as well. Can be kind of tough to read, and especially from the support role, how much damage is that Fafnir hammer realistically doing in comparison to Exordium's 4-man stack up? It's kind of risk first reward for Fusify to try and go a little bit deeper there. I definitely think he made the right decision at just holding fast on that one. But one more time, Finch, it's Exordium in the driver's seat, and Flashpoint looking to take up a fight maybe.
Freuzen looking to lock down Farrakrik in particular has already forced out his Aegis, and he has no beads to back him up. Freuzen has to use the beads of his own to reposition, but now he's caught by the knockup. I think even the Stinger came through too. And Johnny not done with the chase yet. He's been bullying Freuzen all game. There's the Scarab's Blessing though to keep Freuzen alive and punish the heavy dive from Flashpoint. But Sibi is not done yet. In he goes to the back line. Freuzen shall be getting pulled by this Palau, and Johnny finds the first kill.
Johnny's still trying to get away though, and will manage to Trickster Spirit for the moment. Kha'Zix still looking to track him down, but a nice Desert Fury is going to catch out Johnny anyway. Kha'Zix now in the center of all 4 members from Flashpoint, just looking to bring down Farrakrik.
Farrakrik's the one that he wants though, the low HP target. Sibi forces Itori back so that there's no follow-up damage. The crits don't come through in time, but Sibi being hunted down by the Kakulin, and Kha'Zix finds one more. It's 2-for-1 in Exordium's favor, and they have all the turnaround potential here around the Scarab's Blessing. If Flashpoint commit too much on the one target, then Exordium have been able to overrun them.
And Flashpoint just keep going so deep as well, Finch, to try and find these picks in the first place. Freuzen used his beads, got Scarab's Blessing cleansed by the Kefri, and Johnny is still behind Exordium's red buff, chasing this Cabrakan into the T2 tower. And yes, they managed to find the kill, but it does cost them so much in the process that you almost have to wonder if Flashpoint would just be better off hard resetting the engagement after pulling the actives in the first place from Frozen, and then just looking for a team fight elsewhere. I mean, T1 Tower hasn't even really been touched all that much from Flashpoint, and meanwhile Exordium has actually managed to open up and create a little bit of map pressure because of Flashpoint's overextensions.
They found both Tier 1 towers in the mid and in the dual lane, and now in position around the Oni Fury, but you're starting to move into a bit of the scary point of the game now for Itori on this Olaran, level 18, and pretty close to finishing off this first ring that he's working on the back of this Lotus Crown. If the idea was to not let this Olaran become a problem in the late game, we're starting to approach it now, as Oni Fury has been pulled and is Frozen to the backline. Caspanify already quite low and forced out of the fight, so Exordium should be able to grab the Oni.
Impale just to secure it, because neither side, well, excuse me, I take that back. Caspanify definitely has some pretty solid objective secure, but with that crushing wave already having been off the board due to a good force out by Exordium, I definitely think that they had the right idea sticking to that Oni Fury, knowing that it was only Fusify who was really local to try and intervene, but Pyromancer not due to respawn anytime soon either, and Exordium have opened up the first real lead, I think, of this game, Finch. But it's not a lead that you can afford to get comfortable with in this type of composition.
They have some good things to look at, though, and I'm thinking at Kha'Zix's 3-level lead over Sibi in particular as being a big deal. You saw in that last fight how long he was able to stay inside that 1v4 that was happening around this red buff and just soak up a ton of attention and damage. That's something that this Kha'Zix can do right now that maybe Sibi can't quite match until he's able to get a little bit more experience.
As long as Exordium can manage to stay smooshed on top of each other without suffering too much woes from the little bit of AoE burst damage Caspanify offers and the slow applications out of Firecrack, I think that they can definitely continue to take up fights against Flashpoint on the counter initiation.
I know Relic Dagger is in vogue right now, but I was almost wondering if this wouldn't be a wing blade in that slot going into Sibi and Firecrack, who both rely so much on those slows, even Caspanify to some extent, but having Shell and Blink up on a much, much shorter cooldown, that's pretty valuable.
I'm a little bit surprised, though, to not see the idea of maybe a sprint for Exordium.
Sure.
Something that could definitely benefit Angry, that's for sure. This on her being a little bit more reliant, I think, on just sticking closer to the backside and letting Kha'Zix and Alka try and open up some free casting space.
Abduct land here first. Fusify has to use the underhand tactics to retreat. Sibi goes forward, but remember I mentioned not quite as tanky perhaps as Kha'Zix, already quite low and forced into the ultimate. Kha'Zix in the back line does keep 3 members busy for a time, and that means Froizy can trade off Caspanify, the early target. Firecrack in trouble too as he drops to the crit for Itori, and Angry gets the kill credit. Suddenly a 2-for-0, and Exordium go right to the FG.
Which is exactly where they need to be, but Fusify still sticking around, Finch, and this is an objective that Fusify does not want to see go entirely the way of Exordium without at least trying to interfere. Johnny as well on the backside with the Paula, going to be able to pull in Itori, but no damage for follow-up, considering that Firecrack and Caspanify are still waiting to respawn. This is just looking for delay.
And the Fire Giant has been leashed throughout all of this. It's now been brought down quite low, but Flashpoints still are here. They cannot, though, secure the objective. It goes to Exordium. Fusify transforms, immediately pulled in. Sibi falls. Fusify goes to join him, so he's not alone. And just like that, Exordium find 4 kills and the FG. It's all them.
This is a massive momentum swing now for Exordium, Finch, and the opening that they needed to try and further enhance this lead so far. Right side, every single member from Exordium, minus Froizen, who's going to be pushing up that mid lane. This is the right idea with T2 Tower still standing in every single lane. It doesn't hurt to send another member, especially when you've got these staggered respawn timers out of Flashpoint.
It's so difficult, man. It was exactly the threads you're talking about coming into it. Fusify gets abducted by Alka very early on in the fight, forces him to disengage, and then suddenly Sibi's trying to do all the frontlining duties by himself. He's forced into an early suboptimal ultimate. Itori finds a good sanctified field, and then just like that, Exordium come out on top in the fight. FG, they take down the Tier 2 tower and right as well, and they got plenty of time to come back in, grab these last 2 remaining Tier 2 towers, and really push this game out of reach.
This isn't a bad look, though, from Flashpoint, just pushing up that duo side as far as possible. Gonna force Exordium to have to spend a little bit more time reshoving those creep waves, and a good strip away of the jungle by Johnny means that neither Itori or Angry will have a red buff to depend on as they continue looking for the siege against Flashpoint. But it's really just going to come down to whether or not Johnny can actually manage to blow up a target while Alka is distracted elsewhere. It's just been so difficult, I think, for Kaspainify to deal with this Cabrakan up in his face, and that Gauntlet of Thieves pickup that we kind of had a couple of question marks surrounding, I think is definitely synchronized quite well because of the Ethereal Staff shortly after and that Void Stone as well. Just a nice hybrid build here for Froizen, but Exordium can't get too anxious just yet.
Sibby already into the ultimate just to try and disrupt the back line so they can't burn down this left side Phoenix, but that is a pretty big ultimate and a safety factor for Sibby they no longer have for this next bit of the push.
But this is by far Flashpoint's best chance for a defense. Kha'Zix's already going to knock up Kaspainify. Signify Field is out, and Left Phoenix being sieged.
Left Phoenix should go down as well. No real way for Flashpoint to stop that. Fusify gets pulled back in by the Abduct, but it's Kha'Zix and Froizen who are actually a bit low. In comes Johnny and Kaspainify to look for the follow-up. Scarab's Blessing goes down to Kha'Zix to keep him standing. Fusify is just sitting inside the damage, but it makes it 1-for-1. Fusify and Froizen both fall. Exordium had to find a way out, though. All their HP bars are so low.
There's no escape right now for Angry. He's just looking for the straight-up boxing matchup against Farrakrik. Nearly going to find it. No, he does get the 1v1 out-trade. Farrakrik overstepping his boundaries and forgetting who the real king is.
And we haven't given Angry enough credit. I've kind of been waiting for the right time this whole game, but he has not gotten any Scarab's Blessings, I don't think, this game. And that was his first death on this on her in the middle lane. He's been positioning very well, making great use of that leap to reposition within the fights as well, and finally, in a situation where he should have died for much less, at least finds a 1-for-1 trade. A great game from Angry here too.
Farrakrik maybe even going to reconsider the usage of that Stinger and the Honey. I think he had an awesome opportunity for the outplay, but Angry just going one step extra with that pillar placement.
I also wonder if Aegis is a bit of a trap in the 1v1. I mean, how many times have we seen the person leading use Aegis and then the other person just time it right when Aegis is out to find the last hit and turn the fight back around? I don't know. Unless you are, immuning some big, non-repetitive source of damage, I don't think it helps you much in the 1v1.
Finch, no matter what, it's all going to boil down to one simple factor. You got to connect the autos. And
sure.
Farrakrik just did not have anywhere near as many as Angry in that last exchange, plus the Aussie passive proccing pretty heavily there for Angry and the on her passive to boot. So it can be tough for sure trying to take those 1v1 exchanges no matter how low that HP threshold might seem against Angry. I don't think that Farrakrik or Kaspainify can really consider anything to be a freebie, because keep in mind this pillar can also block the crushing wave pretty effectively if timed right.
Itori in some trouble though. This could be good for Flashpoint if they can lock him down. Sanctified Field slows down the chase, and Itori is able to reposition. Meanwhile, Kha'Zix has two that he's keeping zoned out on the right-hand side. Suddenly, Sibby, though, is stuck in the front line, locked inside the walls from Froizen. There's the crits coming through from Itori, but Sibby clings to life. Even still, he's stealthily underground, and it's Angry who falls to Johnny just after we sang his praises. Finally, Sibby ends up falling too, but Froizen, stuck in the middle, is now brought down low, and Farrakrik finds one more.
Oh no, this is an absolute catastrophe right now. Exordium completely on the back heel here. Kha'Zix's gonna get spammed by the slows. Now the bees are gonna spread to Itori and Fusify. Still looking to lead the charge. Hammer Toss is good to go. Aegis again, Finch, but this time Farrakrik not gonna have to worry about his prey being able to out DPS him. Not with Fusify that close by, but so many towers still stand here for Exordium that Flashpoint won't be able to just flat out run it down mid and close this game out, Finch. It's just a massive shutdown factor here to find the clean deicide, and it all starts with Johnny finally forcing his way into the back line and getting Angry while he's so exposed, because as far as I saw, Alka was just distracted. He got tunneled onto Sibby being at 10 HP.
Yeah, I mean, how many fights, how many games do we have to see where Flashpoint are on the ropes and then Johnny at this point in the game makes the hero play to find Angry? That's nuts, man. And it really starts with Sibby buying an absurd amount of time, somehow able to survive on the back end of having used his ultimate, is able to get underground and into stealth, and by a few more precious moments for Johnny to get to the back line and remove Angry, who'd been such a thorn thorn in their side. Now Flashpoint have the FG on all 5 members. They've evened up the match relatively at this point. They are still down about 5,000 gold, but that's not a backbreaker. Flashpoint can definitely fight back in now.
Gold a little bit less important here, and a lot more criticalness being placed, I think, into that resurrection of the left side Phoenix. The fact that Flashpoint now don't have to worry about Exordium possibly looking for that backdoor entryway is definitely going to be a huge sigh of relief here, and Exordium might even want to be a little bit careful now pushing forward this deep into the jungle, looking for another pick, but if you burn everything onto the support and you don't find it right away, Flashpoint's just going to be there for the collapse.
Angry has again become the target. Looks like Flashpoint realized that he's had a great game as well, and they're trying to shut him down. The knockups are there from Sibby on the Jormungandr, and Angry never gets any backup. Alka had the Scarab's Blessing, but just couldn't get it on him. Angry goes down. Veracryx now in some trouble too, and Freuzen is the one that falls Johnny on a killing spree. Alka has to put the Scarab's Blessing on himself, but so far it's all Flashpoint barreling down Exordium.
Decent route to buy a little bit of time here, but that turn back around is going to mean that Johnny can catch up no problem with the Trickster Spirit. Kha'Zix now looking to do what he can, but inside of all 5 members of Flashpoint just doesn't stand a chance. Gonna fold like paper on that one. And Flashpoint now, they've got the creep wave. They're gonna just charge right down this mid lane like we were talking about earlier, Finch, and with only Ittori left to try and play defense, he's just gotta pray that some kind of miracle happens here, because it doesn't even have the sanctified field either.
10 seconds and then Angry is back up. Freuzen will be 5 seconds or so behind that, but I don't know if they're going to be given those 10 seconds that they need. Itori, the last bastion, to try and keep Exordium into this game. They were leading for nearly the entire match, but it's Flashpoint who strips it away from them at the last moment.
A little bit heartbreaking there for sure for Exordium,
Wow.
Finch. I definitely thought that they had a lot of tools at their disposal to look to close that one out for a clean game 1 victory, but you can never count Flashpoint out, and Johnny, I think, doing a great job. As soon as he realized that Angry was exposed in that back line, he just didn't take any second chances and just went right in for the dive.
Yeah, if you all want to just go back to some of Flashpoint's previous matches that they've played and just get some of our analysis from there about how Johnny's nuts, then yeah, I think that would apply here perfectly. I mean, yet again, he finds that dive that they need onto Angry and they shut him down. And going into maybe the 27-minute mark, Angry was 7-0-5, something like that. And then the last 3 minutes of the game, Flashpoint make the adjustment. They make Angry their focus, and they take the on her out of the fight early. And it wasn't just Johnny. Whoever it was they needed to, they made sure they dove that on her.
And with all that being said, I definitely still think that we saw a lot of promising components from Exordium in Game 1 here. I mean, keep in mind, they were pretty heavily in control for a lot of that match.
Yeah.
I think they just need to be better about trying to stay as strong the whole way through to the finish line.
And we talked about how important that Khepri ultimate is. It's got to be perfect almost the whole game, or you might not be getting enough value out of it. Either way, it's Flashpoint who come out on top in game number 1. But can Exordium bounce back? We'll find out after the break.
Alienware, the official PC provider of the Smite Minor League.
Welcome back to the desk. Did you guys hear that music break? It was like a soft piano interlude into just the rage of the Titans. It's kind of how game number 1 went. We saw one side of the organization just kind of keep it going. Gradually, Flashpoint would push down a little bit, little by little, and then at the end, Flashpoint just went, Nah, jumped on her, took the game away, but it was very much one-sided for the majority of this match.
This is definitely the difference between high-caliber teams versus teams that are good but don't know how to close out games, unfortunately. Exordium were really leaning on the strengths of the On-Her. Great play from Angry, especially surviving that one gank after receiving that Scarab's Blessing. But once Flashpoint figured out the key towards winning the late-game strategies was focusing out the On-Her, everything just went south since then.
You know, it was interesting watching the last one because obviously when you watch the On Her, you expect the mid-game master, and that's what happened. He made those rotations early, but then still was involved late, and that's why Flashpoint had to change it up. Picks and bans on the way. We'll see if they change things up there as well, because as far as I'm concerned, the draft from Flashpoint was okay. It was just a lack of execution.
It was because of how aggressive I think Hispanify was on the Habwa, trying to take those 1v1 fights up against the Olaron between the Tier 1 and the Tier 2.
I liked it.
Almost went his way. He just missed that one little ability, but that's what I think gave Exordium a little bit of that early to mid-game edge.
Farrakrick still in the middle of everybody's minds. No Giannis for the mid laner on Flashpoint this time around. Isis going to be banned as well. The mid laner has been very, very powerful, and so she'll be pushed to the wayside. Zhang Kui, just like game number 1, a little bit too potent of a big guy. He'll be pushed away as well. And then Flashpoint on the clock this time around. They looked into, not set, but they'll ban him here.
I think that Exordium's draft that last game was good, the way they executed with the Cabrakan jungle up against Flashpoint's immobile draft of using the Amusin Cob.
Sure.
Worked out well for them. They just need to be able to control that late game and not get overzealous a little bit too much. That left side Phoenix Siege was a little bit sketchy.
Well, Olaron banned out here by Flashpoint. They didn't like fighting into that sanctified field, because Spainify didn't like fighting into that sanctified field. But Exordium also banning out something that Flashpoint had played. The Jormungand are going to be taken away from Sibby here. I think that's a big deal. Sibby did a lot that last game. Even when they were losing, he was kind of pressuring the solo laner.
There was also some rotations from Johnny onto that solo lane, so not very easy for Kha'Zix on the Kukulkan to survive some of those engagements. He was even getting bullied in the 1v1, so smart idea to take that World Serpent away.
Khepri taken away from Exordium here. Flashpoint are going to play this one. We'll see if they can nail those Scarab's Blessings last fight. Angry still looking for his. Scarab's Blessing next to Osiris. The dead god will show up one more time here for Flashpoint. First pick, of course, Kronos. And that's just Exordium going, all right, you can have some of the utility characters. We are going to bring damage. And Thor's a good guy to pair that up with.
Something that we didn't see last game, neither picked or banned, but now very high on the priority list. I love this selection from Exordium, the global pressure. Important to try to figure out what weaknesses you can lean on. And for Flashpoint, when you have an aggressive jungler making those rotations, you need some global pressure to keep up.
Horus can bring some semi-global pressure, just like the Thor. Horus Kronos is a dirty lane that you don't want to be on the other side of. So much setup for the setup, and then the additional damage out of Kronos setting up into Thor's ultimate can be very disturbing as well. So Horus, I love this pick for Exordium so far. Definitely a big fan of what they got going on.
Flashpoint's draft's theme is all about the second chances, right? You got Kali ultimate, Khepri ultimate, and then Osiris is literally the lord of the afterlife as well. He's got many second chances in his lifetime.
Well, 2 powerful picks going to be banned away here in our second phase. No Merlin, no AMC. The Morgan going to be banned out as well by Flashpoint. And the final ban of the game from Exordium, likely to be focused on that middle lane. And it will be Soul one more time here. The basic attacker taken away. And I like the AMC Soul because they're both basic attackers that can play both the long lane and the mid lane. As we see that's pretty much what a Flashpoint lack.
A lot of flexibility, but that leads to a different selection entirely for Flashpoint. Relying a little bit of the cripple ideas to take that away from the Horus. Having 2 dashes is a little obnoxious to deal with. Thor as well wants to teleport to that hammer. Not only that, it's the burst damage. If you can catch the Kronos during the rewind, Kraken should seal the deal.
Kraken into Thor or Thanatos or any of the characters that land from above. I love Kraken into that because it's going to always surprise the jungler. Not even if it's a surprise, but you can punish the jungler is a better word for it, for jumping on you in the first place. Achilles, fantastic answer to what Khepri is going to bring. And Chiron, some cleanses. Totally. I love this Exordium draft.
It is really good about surviving as well, being able to get that last hit and prevent the Kali from going in. But if it's not Kali going to dive you, it's also going to be an Ao Kuang apparently.
Flashpoint have two deadly assassins on their side. Can they take the game? We'll ask John Finch.
You know, they have a really good shot, but I liked the way Exordium played in game number 1, so I'm just expecting a close one here as Kaspainify takes Kali into the long lane. Johnny, of course, on the signature Ao Kuang, no doubt there. It was just a question of where the Kali was going to go. And how do you like this? Kali up against the Chronos for Itori.
Finch, all I've got to see is Johnny on that Ao Kuang. And I've got
This is a wrap. This is a
pretty
lock.
good indicator of what's going to happen. I don't think we need to play the rest of the footage here. Johnny on AO is... I'm sorry, Exordium. You did it to yourselves.
And as much as Johnny is very good at Ao Kuang, and we do imagine that he will be looking quite strong on it, obviously this Khalid, kind of the real headline for it, taking the Hunter's Blessing to get started in, probably has plenty of really good boxing potential. But what about the clear?
This is the flavor I was waiting for to take place in the long lane for sure, though, Finch, because Hunter's Blessing, I think, can be a strong take for sure, getting that boosted in-hand attack damage, especially once you evolve Blessing to be plus 30, is going to be pretty difficult for Itori to deal with in these earlier stages. And not only that, but it's the 1v1 potential when you think about it. It's not a duel, so to say, but it can kind of feel like one in a sense, just because of the fact that Kaspainify has the second life chance, just like Itori, and if all he has to do is kill Itori, and it's should be a complete refresh for Kali.
And I imagine he'll make Itori, you know, the target. That way when he's boxing, he'll have the advantage that he's going into him with, because he can essentially guarantee he's always fighting up against his target. As Fusify takes quite a bit of poke here on the right-hand side. This could be trouble for Froizen, though, as Fusify rotates over the shell, keeps Johnny alive. Alka comes in, too, and with the water illusion, it's first blood. Alka in trouble for a third kill as Farrakrick makes the rotation. That's a nightmare start for Exordium as Flashpoint find 3.
And within all 3 of those kills, it's always Johnny who gets the first blood bounty, Finch.
Somehow.
I don't understand, but Johnny just finds a way. It's almost like a guarantee that if Johnny gets AO, he's going to find some kind of crazy early game advantage that should never happen in a million years, that teams constantly think, well, we'll be able to play around this, no problem.
Well, imagine that you're Exordium in the drafting phase and this Kali gets flaunted early on, and that is something Johnny does like to play.
It is a really good bait. Don't get me wrong. I think that this was a slam dunk draft in the picks and bans for sure out of Flashpoint, but I still think that there's always got to be that hovering concern if you don't see AO on the ban selection list that Johnny's going to try to go for it. And here, we get a lot of spice, sure, out of Flashpoint's dual lane. And you asked me about the clear as well for this Kali, and it's really not as bad as you might think. That Fold Lash actually pretty effective at getting a decent spread of damage. It's mostly about avoiding Itori if he tries to look for the stop times to get poke exchange from a distance.
That's pretty much the dance when you're going up against the Chronos almost every time, but you're right, with Kali in particular at the melee range, it could be a concern to kind of break down how much they struggled off that last fight. Sibi has already completed the Warrior's Blessing. Meanwhile, Kha'Zix only has 9 stacks. That's a huge advantage for Sibi on the Osiris, as if he wasn't mitigating enough damage already. Angry in some trouble, does make it back to the tier 1 tower, but he'll be okay. But Farrakrick already level 5. I mean, it's just going to be a bit of a problem for Exordium to deal with it after that bad early fight.
I'm also really curious to see how this Chiron mid is utilized, because typically we look at Chiron as a central piece in control composition, since you have that cleanse available off of the training exercise. But aside from Abduct from Fusify, who, in my mind, Fusify's really only looking for that Abduct on the carry, so like Angry, Froizen, Itori are the ones mainly a threat, just like he's affecting Kha'Zix.
He does still have that Fatal Strike available, and they can't find the body block, but it looks like they want to commit for the dive. No, they instead elect to give up on it. Sibi would have certainly been in trouble. Froizen doesn't have the ultimate either, so he cannot rotate in. Kha'Zix makes it out.
Level 5, though, just ticked in for Johnny. Froizen, on the other hand, still sitting at level 4. This blue buff might just be forced away here by Flashpoint. Hammer Toss going to be used, but to no avail, and Fusify will reap the spoils as Flashpoint's Khepri now going to have that 10% cooldown reduction on top of everything else here with that mana sustain. And it was definitely a strong look from Flashpoint, but a wise decision to back off once they recognized that Kha'Zix was down.
The Kraken lands on the Alka for the knockup, but Alka makes his way back out of there. I think he actually got cleansed by Angry. That's something that only Chiron can do for you in the middle lane. Maybe a hell, but pretty nice play.
It was a close call for sure, and that's what I was really waiting to see, whether or not Angry was going to have an actual opportunity to utilize this cleanse. Because, again, Finch, I'm definitely expecting Flashpoint to only make it a matter of time before they begin focusing Angry just as heavily as they did in Game 1.
But I like that willingness to pull the trigger from Faircrick on that Kraken. I mean, it's still at level 4 for Alka on this Horus, and that's just how it be if you're a support right now. So they should keep that going. In particular, Horus can really struggle if you put him behind. The ultimate already feels so situational. There's even less situations if you're down. So I like the aggression.
But is there anything worse than being stuck in a solo lane up against an Osiris that got off to a fantastic start? Because Achilles is so familiar with being the lane bully in these 1v1 scenarios, Finch, but that's just not the case here. And Sibi has constantly kept Kha'Zix confined to this T1 tower line, and is just refusing to let him budge.
Yeah, I think your opponent getting a kill to start the game off can do that. The Warrior's Blessing has been finished for minutes now, has the Glad Shield there as well, even though there's not one that's there for Kha'Zix either, so that it's just a huge advantage that he has in this match.
And Angry right now, not going to use the cleanse for that Khepri route. And wise patience as well. And that's the other difficulty here for Angry, is that you want to look for that training exercise for clear, but you've got to be careful that you also have it for aggression as well. In fact, to get caught up in the Kraken, Scarab's Blessing is good, but Angry just trying to stay alive.
Johnny, though, does get rezzed by that Scarab's Blessing, but that's actually really good work from Froizen to disrupt Johnny on the Ao Kuang, so he couldn't find that execute that allows for Exordium to make it out without losing any further lives in that exchange. Though Fusify does find the Abductor to Froizen, but in comes Alka, actually is finding some good use off that ultimate, despite what I said, and Exordium are now on the board.
But I can't help but believe that Flashpoint wanted Exordium to stay preoccupied in that mid lane, because while they were finding a solid pick on the Fusify, yeah, but that blue buff is entirely Sibi. One more time, Johnny gonna help him clear out the other side of the map. And Caspainify also seems to be getting the better end of Victoria as well on the opposite side of the map. These side lanes just suffering so much additional pressure from Exordium.
I'm surprised Caspainify didn't use the beads there to commit for that kill against Caspainify just now. Perhaps didn't think that he had the actual kill potential. As give us a moment, looks like we do have a brief pause. We are going to work on this here on our end, but we just saw a little bit of what Caspainify can do with that Kali in the long lane.
And it's a pretty exciting, I think, insight as far as whether or not this Kali is actually going to have a chance to pop off, because keep in mind, Chrono's still a pretty strong candidate in terms of winning those 1v1 exchanges if you don't play it perfect.
All right, we're going to be working on getting everything sorted out on our end here, so sit tight for us. A quick break. We'll be right back.